Today I'm going to take you through some solutions we've built in Power BI, looking at sales analytics, purchasing analytics, and then a little bit of working capital and inventory control. We have built these models using the Microsoft Dynamics Navision. So these plug directly into Navision. I'll go in more detail about the configuration and what it's meant for Power BI just now. Let me just give you a bit of background about ourselves. We are a South African-based company who has recently acquired a business in Australia. So we now have offices in Johannesburg, Cape Town, Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne. We are still looking to expand, so we are growing into a global business quite rapidly. We have clients from all over the world. Many of the JSE top 100 clients come to us for solutions, whether it's data management and warehouse solutions, business intelligence and advanced analytics, enterprise performance management, finance analytics. Our value proposition is really enabling our customers to have better access to better information so that they can make better decisions faster. So we combine information strategy, technology, and our analytical services to really give you a great platform to understand your business performance and to make changes to influence that business performance. And we are technology agnostic, so we have no preference for one technology over another. You'll see in the middle stack there, we are Microsoft partner, Gold Microsoft partner in various areas. We're a SAP partner. We were the Click Partner of the Year last year and the year before. And we've recently added Microsoft Power BI to our stable. This is our business intelligence division. This is what we're going to be talking about today. So if you look at the tools and technologies there in the middle, sorry, I just want to get my drawing tool out here. So if you look in the middle there, we've got the three big players in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for BI technologies, and that's Click, Microsoft Power BI, and Tableau. Microsoft Power BI, obviously key strength for Microsoft Power BI is that it's in the Microsoft technology stack. It feeds off SQL Server or SSAS reporting layer that sits on top of your data warehouse. They are updating Microsoft Power BI every single month. It's coming with an update. And those updates are based on what the market is most keen to see. So the feedback that they get from the market, it's really a situation of, whoever's shouting loudest gets their upgrade first. So the latest update with Microsoft Power BI added a feature where if you make a selection in a filter on one sheet of your model, that selection carries over to other sheets, which is something that the other technologies have, and Microsoft has now added it. There is the licensing for Power BI specifically is also very affordable. They have a few different licensing options, a few different configuration options for companies, how you can make it work, whether on cloud or on premise, and several different licensing options. One thing I do want to highlight about Power BI is if you are going to run Power BI Enterprise or Pro, I think it's called Premium, Power BI Premium or Power BI Pro configuration, you will need a Microsoft SQL Server Enterprise license, which comes at a not insignificant cost. So when you are comparing the different licensing costs for the BI technologies out there, please take into account that Microsoft does need some other technologies. It does piggyback off SQL or SSAS. You will need a reporting layer that sits on top of your data warehouse. The reason why I say this is the back-end data load and transformation engine in Microsoft Power BI is maybe not as advanced as the Click engine is, whereas Click can load data from many disparate sources and aggregate it, transform it, relate it to each other, link tables, all very, very easily and very fast, with the ability to go in and edit your queries at any time in the script editor. Microsoft Power BI is not quite as easy to go through that process. It is still possible. They do have some options for merging tables, for transforming data, creating measures, But ideally, you would want to perform all those tasks on a SQL layer that sits on top of your data warehouse, or on the data that's going into your data warehouse. Microsoft Power BI is really strong when it's pulling clean data that already has measures calculated, already has transformations done, and already has associations between the different data sources. Then Microsoft Power BI is a great tool for displaying or visualizing the data that's sitting either in your data warehouse or in your SQL reporting. I think I just wanted to highlight that when comparing the different technologies, please, you will need to do a bit of homework. Otherwise, please get in contact with us and we can talk you through the various configuration options and what the requirements are in terms of complementary technologies that are required in order to run Microsoft Power BI as a company. We have recently gone through a project, and I'm going to be demoing these models today, where we plug directly into the Navision, Microsoft Dynamics Navision ERP system. And we're pulling direct query, pulling data out of that system and doing these transformation steps inside Microsoft Power BI. And we have learned that, it's not a strength of Power BI. We were able to do it, but it has taken us longer than it may have taken us with another technology. So something to bear in mind, you may save some money on the licensing side with Power BI, but just bear in mind that there's a slightly longer development time if you're creating complex data models. For visualizing clean data, no problems. Microsoft Power BI is a perfect tool for doing that. If you are unsure about your company's specific setup and whether Microsoft Power BI would be the best tool for you or how you would set it up, please don't hesitate to get in contact with me, and we will all with Decision Inc. and we will guide you through that process, show you the various options available, and really try and objectively give you a recommendation on what's the best BI solution for yourselves. So without further ado, let's go look at these models that we built using Nav. So it's going to take away my drawing. So if we go, I'm going to start with the sales analysis. This is something that a lot of you will be familiar with. It's analyzing company sales performance across various stores, products, customers, etc. Really trying to iron out, where does the company perform well regarding revenue on the revenue side. So we start here on the dashboard. Just got some high-level KPIs. Please bear in mind that these models are still work in progress, so they're not the final versions. We still, small tweaks that we need to work on, regarding the look and feel of the dashes, but the information content here is accurate. We've done our checks, so it is working. We have built the solution to plug into any instance of Navision. So if you're running Navision at your company and you would like these accelerators that I'm about to demo today, please know that we could come in and install these accelerators on your premises, plug them directly into Nav, and with a very short turnaround time, you could have these BI solutions working in your company. So at the top, we've got our KPI boxes, which are just giving us some high-level performance indicators of how the company's doing versus last year. We're looking at sales revenue versus last year, gross margin, both as a percentage and the actual rand value, quantity of units moved, number of distinct customers year on year. If you look on the bottom left, we've got our year-on-year revenue graph. You can see for this specific customer that we're looking at, they started the year very well in January, whereas last year, January was extremely slow. And then February, they've taken a bit of a knock. So it seems that last year, clients probably weren't as active during January, and they all came back in Feb, and that's why February's number was so high. Whereas this year, the behavior was a little bit different. The guys were purchasing in January. So then when it came to February, they weren't catching up all the January purchases. So February is lower than last year, these guys. If we look bottom right, Microsoft Power BI has embedded geoanalytics in the tool. What you're looking at here, I'm just going to zoom in on the Southern Africa region, just to show you guys in a bit more detail. What you see here is pie charts showing the share of revenue per the different sub-regions. So in a country, for instance, up here we've got Nigeria. There's no sub-region. The whole country is looked at as one solid market. We've just got an object there telling you that so far, year to date, we've done 1.5 million rand to Nigerian customers. If we go down and we look at South Africa, for example, you see it's a little pie chart, and that's because it's been split up into the different city regions. Where I'm hovering over now, you can see that the city has not been highlighted. So this is a blank entry in the data. One thing that's great about these BI solutions and visualizing the data that's in your systems is that you can see where you've got badly captured data or incorrectly captured data. It sticks out like a bit of a sore thumb, so you can go and resolve those data issues in your system. Without these visualizations, it can be quite hard to pick up gaps in your data or incorrect entries. So that's a nice byproduct of these BI technologies. So if we hop over, they've got the different regions, Driekop, Benoni South. These are the areas for this company where they do their business. You can see it's got it there in a little pie chart. And like I said, we can zoom in and have a look at it. You can customize the size of these pie charts. Everything in these charts is fully customizable. It's all done through a graphic user interface, the development in Power BI. There is scripting. On the back end, they use a language called mQuery to do your scripting, to do your data extraction and transformation. Although a lot of that mQuery transformation ability has been embedded in a graphic interface. So you can make selections. I want to merge two columns. I want to aggregate these based on this field. You can do that all by pointing and clicking in Power BI. For some more complicated transformations and measure creations, you may need to actually code them in mQuery in the solution. On the front end, however, Microsoft Power BI, when you're building objects on the front end of your models, does not use mQuery. There it uses DAX. Very similar to Excel. If you have used Excel before, you know how to do if statements, nested if statements, all of that. That is DAX language that you're using in Excel. So Microsoft uses that same language on the front end for the reports front end creation development. And I imagine the reason that they did that is because DAX is familiar to people. So what you generally find in a business is you have your developers who build the back end models and deliver models with base functionality to the users, the business users, various departments. And then those departments take those models and really tailor them to suit their needs, create their own graphs, create their own tables. So what Microsoft have done by putting DAX on the front end is making it very easy for your let's call them unskilled developers to create these tables and graphs on the front end using a language that they should be somewhat familiar with. So again, just on the customization, just to get these larger, I mean, if you do want to see these pie charts larger, everything's fully customizable within Power BI. You can get a much better idea of where the revenue is sitting. So within Zimbabwe, for instance, again, they haven't captured sub-regions for most of their revenue, although they have, and then the biggest sub-region that they have captured is just the same name as the country. So this is one of those areas where you're highlighting a data quality issue. The company can then go into the back end and fix these data entries or fix the mapping in their data warehouse. So moving on from the dashboard, let's look at the performance of stores. We've got our what we call our store review here. And basically this is highlighting store performance versus the company average. So I'm going to select a store. I just want to sort them here by current year sales. So store 2 has done the most sales this year. So let's highlight store 2 versus the company. Just give it a second for the objects to update. This is all working on direct query. So, it does take a second. But if I look here, I think store 2 is not a great example to choose. Let's go to 53. That's the next biggest. All right, so what we're seeing here, see, so this is what I was talking about. Because we've plugged this directly into Navision and we've done all the transformation and the measure creations within Power BI itself, what I've done for this model is I've obviously gone through and removed all the customer names, the product names, the store names from the model, so to use it as a demo model. And now you can see that some of these objects don't like the changes that I've made in Power BI. So Power BI, if your environment is changing, it's going to require a lot of development to maintain your models, probably more so than some of the other technologies. If your environment is, set and everything's clean and everything's working properly, and you're going to plug a model on top of it that's unlikely to ever change, then Power BI is a great solution for that. So I'm just going to unselect the store over here. Let's just go back to the overview. All right, so what we've got on the left is we've got a table that's just showing per store. It's showing current year sales versus last year and what the growth margin percentages are. And then on the right-hand side, it's showing revenue growth and gross margin percentage growth. If those, based on what the company's targets are, there's obviously conditional formatting. We can make the text green or red, as you can see. We can also, make the actual bars green or red if you want to highlight, if you have a different look and feel. It's all very customizable on the front end. If we look across the top right, we've got store performance, analyzing revenue and quantity of products moved for the year to date. And you can see here, store 2 is far and away the best performing store in terms of revenue. In terms of quantity, we're looking at store code 8 has sold the highest quantity of units, but for much less revenue. And we can see that store 8 last year, this is a new store that's come in. So what's probably happening here is because it's a new store, a new location for the company, they are probably offering great deals on their products through this specific store to try and generate a client base in their new region, in their new location. So that's why you're seeing the performance that we're seeing over here. If we then at the bottom here, based on the selections you make, it'll show you the store growth percentage versus the overall company growth percentage. Again, like I explained earlier, this functionality is currently not working as we would like it to. So what we would do if we did come deploy these at our NAV clients, our AX clients, our Great Plains clients, these accelerators, is we would deploy them, then we would check obviously that everything's working, and those areas where the model is not working as well as intended, we would have to just do some tweaking and some development to get everything working properly. But the benefit is obviously that deployment time, including the tweaks and small development, is going to be a much shorter turnaround than if we built a custom BI solution for your company. So there is definitely a time saving and there's a cost saving because you're not paying for a developer for 2 or 3 months to build your custom model. You're really getting a developer to come for a week or two to come and deploy an existing model at your premises. Go over to our store analysis. We're still focusing on store performance here. So again, you can see, we're highlighting which stores are performing the best. This specific client wanted to see revenue and quantity in this matrix. I often prefer to see revenue versus gross margin percentage, because that gives you more, I think in marketing, they call it the BCG matrix, where you can determine which products, which stores, which customers are your cash cows, your dogs, etc. That's based on, obviously the amount of revenue they bring in, but also how profitable those stores are. So it's no use having a store that brings in 90% of your revenue at a 1% gross margin. You would rather say to them, listen, maybe drop that revenue number a bit and get us a better margin so that the overall company can be profitable. And with this graph here, you'll be able, it's almost creating a mini BCG matrix for yourself. If we look bottom left here, we've got our monthly sales revenue by store in a stacked bar. So you can really see the store contributions month on month. Obviously, this is only looking at year to date. So as when we refresh this data, it will update up until just about the end of April. Obviously, this model, if it's sitting on your premises running off your systems, will be live. We'll set it up to reload every night. So these graphs will, the data will be populated every single night and the graphs will grow as we go. It's just interesting to see, what these guys are selling. So if we want to isolate a specific product group, then these things are going to update and we can see which stores are selling. So store 8 is selling the specific product group. I don't want to go into too much detail, but you can select certain items, certain product groups, certain customers even, and then these graphs will all update and show you which stores are selling those products to those customers. All right, moving on to the product analysis here. Again, this is analyzing performance of the various products, both on an item level and a product group level. The tables at the top are showing performance versus last year, both revenue and gross margin percentage. And then you can see them there. The one on the left is by product group, one on the right is specific item codes. So if I select the product group on the left here, then my table on the right should update and show me only those item codes that are within that product group. I'm just going to remove my selection quickly. Again, at the bottom, we've got our stacked bar, which is showing by product group share of revenue brought in each month. So let's select a specific store. We saw store 8 was our new store that we were looking at that had low margins. And if we look at it now, we can see which product groups it's selling and what the gross margin percentages are. So on the right here, you'll see the second biggest seller in terms of product groups through the store is product group 41, and they've been selling these products at a negative margin. The same goes for product group 44. So those are probably what they're calling their loss leaders. Again, from the BCG matrix, your loss leader is a product that you maybe sell either at cost or slightly below cost or at a limited margin in order to gain either market share or customers or awareness or foot traffic through your stores. So they've clearly identified these two product groups as the loss leaders for this store for launch, and they're pushing very aggressive deals across these product groups. They're also quite aggressive within the top product group 40. That margin is much lower than the company average of 35%. And together, those three product groups are really bringing them down. You can see here product group 43 and 42, they clearly haven't identified those as being critical as loss leaders, and those they're making normal margins, even very healthy margins across those two product groups. So again, the real intelligence in these BI tools is digging into the graphs, digging into the reports, making selections and trying to isolate performance in a specific area so you can understand how a specific store or a specific product is performing within a store, etc. Let's just deselect that store there. So again, I just want to go through one more. Let's select the top store was store number 2, was our top performer. Just wait for this to update. And across store number 2 now we can see their performance. So interestingly enough, you'll see they also have a product group that's running at negative margin. Obviously, this store is an established store, so it hasn't got anything to do with a launch special. Maybe it's got to do with a competitive play. There may be a competitor that's opened up in the near surrounds that is selling similar products, so they're getting into a price war. Or this may simply be older stock that they're trying to move, or a specific key client that they discounted one product for in order to sell volumes of another product group. Obviously the analysts and the business people within the various business areas, within the various stores or product groups, product managers, they'll know the detail behind these numbers. So this is great for the executives to understand performance within your business, but in order to get the background of why this performance is the way it is, they would still need to engage with your business analysts. What's really great from these BI technology perspective is it removes the data preparation requirement from business analysts. They no longer have to pour through SQL queries and Excel pivots to generate the reports that they're giving to the management team. They really can just open Power BI, open Click, open Tableau, and all that information is there prepared for them already. And that frees your analysts up to do what their core job really is, and that's to analyze performance. And freeing up that time, you should start seeing improved performance because your business analysts are spending more time actually understanding why performance is the way it is. It also gives them more time to dig into it. So at an exco level, at a management level, they'll be able to give you more detailed analysis of why performance is the way it is, which obviously then informs the overall group strategy, the overall group tactics in the marketplace. Let's just remove this selection again here on store. So if we go over to the customer analysis, we're looking at very similar things. On the bottom left here again, we've got the our map showing, you know, where our customers are located, where our revenue is going. As far as I understand at the moment, Power BI's geo-analytics, we cannot scale these bubbles based on the revenue number. So ideally what you would like to see is these little pie charts and bubbles here being sized according to revenue. So you can easily see which region is generating the most revenue. Like I say, Power BI doesn't, I'm not sure if that functionality is included yet, but it will come soon. Monthly updates from them every month. So if the market shouts loud enough for that requirement, they will definitely add it in coming up. So let's look at our customer analysis. Again, we've got our customer year-on-year growth and gross margin percentages. On the top right here, we've got an interesting graph which shows revenue based on the frequency of sales per customer. So what you can see here is the bulk of the company's revenue is coming from customers who've transacted 100 times to date this year. We are, you know, let's call it 4 months into the year. So, you know, we're talking about once a day that these customers are transacting with you, and that's where the bulk of the company's revenue is. You can see there are a lot of companies sitting up here. There is some revenue coming in for customers who've already transacted a few hundred times this year. And that leads me to believe that there's a lot of returns, there's a lot of credit notes being issued, there's a lot of transactions in here that aren't just sales invoices. So these are probably your high maintenance clients. You know, for strategic reasons, these clients may be important to you, and you may dedicate resources to manage all these transactions that are coming through. But really, you know, it's pointing to some kind of dissatisfaction, some kind of operational problem that is causing these people to transact with you 5, 6, 7 times a day, rather than just the once a day for the invoice as required. You hope that it's not a product quality thing or a customer service thing. You hope that it's, you know, it's rather either an issue that's going on at your customer side, or it's a business process thing that you can easily identify and streamline so that you don't have to spend this much time managing these clients. And again, on the bottom right, we've got our stacked bar, which is showing our monthly sales revenue by customer. Let's select one country. Let's go to South Africa for obvious reasons. And let's just look at that graph, the stacked bar within South Africa. So you can see there's a few large clients within the South African market and a couple of smaller ones. And South Africa does account for, year to date, we're looking at 315. Again, this says to me that there's probably some poor data in here. I want to see if there's a blank field. There is. Let's select blank and deselect South Africa. It has been deselected. And now you can see here. So the bulk of the revenue that's coming in has not been mapped to any specific country or region. It's coming up as blank in the country codes. So this is obviously a big blind spot for the company. This is one of those situations where they would want to go back into their customer records on their data warehouse or in their systems and recapture all the information regarding, you know, the location of these customers, so that their customer analysis dashboard is a more accurate reflection of who is buying from them and where these people are located, where these companies are located. Let's just deselect blank here and go back to the overall view. Then the last sheet, the last dashboard we've got in this sales analysis is a margin analysis dashboard. And that's really showing, at the bottom left, we've got a graph that's showing overall company gross margin percentage year on year, this year versus last year. You can see some seasonality in the gross margin here. So either July, August, mid-year, either supply exceeds demand in the market and the business is forced to drop their margin levels in order to keep the revenue coming in, or it's linked to the financial periods of some of their large clients perhaps. it's coming up to the end of the client's financial year and they don't have budget to purchase from them, or they're waiting for budgets to be finalized before they do those purchases. Because you can see the big gap in gross margin percentage last year between August and September. There's a full 9% difference in gross margin, which is quite drastic. For a company that's doing about 20 million rand a month, I mean, if you're losing 10% almost of your gross margin on that due to seasonality, that's a 2 million rand swing. So it's quite significant. So understanding that seasonality is also important, which is why we have the month and the year-on-year trend. If we look at the tables here, the tables are all very similar to each other, just looking at the gross margin and revenue performance from different angles. So top left, we've got per customer gross margin performance. So if I sort it by current year gross margin percentage, we can tell who our most profitable customers are. Got a customer code here, 579, whose gross margin percentage is supposedly 100%. Obviously, that's probably not accurate. And if we look at the revenue number, I mean, the margin number, we're talking about 66,000 Rand. So this is probably an invoice where they didn't properly capture the cost of sale, or it's stock that had been written off, so it had a zero value assigned to it, and they've just managed to find a buyer for it and they moved it off. So in the system, it's showing it as 100% margin. If we order it by the top customers in terms of Rand value margin, then we can see customer 115 is operating at a 36.5% margin. That's 3% up from last year in terms of gross margin percentage, although the actual margin revenue, I mean the margin Rand value is 20%, almost 20% lower than last year. So they have improved profitability of this client, but they've dropped revenue. So overall Rand value margin that they've made from their sales into this client has gone down year on year, despite the margin percentage going up. Again, we look over here top right, we've shown the same story, this time by product groups, and at the bottom per store. So what we can see if we order by margin here, similar to what we saw on the revenue dashboards, is that store number 2 is bringing in the most margin. It's one of our lower gross margin percentage stores. There are a few stores here who have higher gross margin percentages, but no one comes close in terms of the revenue. So this, they're probably doing a lot of bulk deals out of here where they're giving some wholesale discounts, some bulk discounts to each client. What we like to include in our models is we like to have a transaction detail tab. You can actually see the details of specific purchases that are going in here. I see we don't have a purchase order number on here. There's something we most likely add. Just so that if you did want to go and isolate one specific purchase order where you're having a problem, you'd be able to isolate it within here. If you want to isolate a specific day, we just select that day. No, we don't. Again, so Power BI filtering, what we would have to do is we'd have to create a filter box at the top here for posting date. And then you'd be able to select a date within that filter box, and then the rest of this would only show you based on that selection. So that was our sales accelerator. This is the most common first entry into the BI space, or the modern BI space for most companies. It's obviously key for any company to understand where they're getting their revenue from, both on a store level, a customer level, as well as a product level. They need to know where the good performers are, where the bad performers are within their business. So the sales analysis is usually a first step for any client for BI. A close second for many clients, especially manufacturing clients, would be your purchasing analysis. You really want to have a look at, first of all, who are you buying from? Secondly, between vendors, what is pricing like for the same item between various vendors? You also want to see, do you have contracts in place with these vendors? If you have BEE details for your suppliers, then you can work a BEE dashboard in here to show you your supplier development score, which obviously rolls up into your company's total BEE score. So there's a lot you can gain from, having a deeper look at your purchasing and what you're doing. So again, similar to the sales accelerator, we've got some KPI boxes on a dashboard, which is just showing you high level procurement versus last year. So what we've seen currently this year, the company has spent 21 million Rand versus last year at this stage, they'd spent 48 million Rand. So they're definitely purchasing less than last year. Either they have a lot of stock on hand, or the demand just isn't coming in as fast as they expected. You know, the actual company will know the background to these numbers. What we also like to do when we do come and install solutions, a BI solution, whether it's these accelerators or a custom built BI model for you, is we do like to go through the results and the numbers that we find in the BI model and have a discussion around performance and the insights we glean from the model, and then, you know, obviously leveraging off the company's background and the company's expertise and experience, trying to say, okay, well, this is what we're seeing from an outside perspective. Give us the background. Why is this performance like this? So together we can interrogate the model, and once delivered and signed off, the company has a really great understanding of how to read the insights contained within the model. So just if we look over here on the right, so we saw that the revenues, the purchasing spend has halved year on year for the first 2 months of the year, and the number of vendors the company is purchasing from is also halved. That's about in line. Although number of orders is only slightly down. So, you know, there's been no shortage of activity within the purchasing department, but the orders that they're making are much smaller than they were previous year. So let's dig down into our specific vendors. So what you can see top left here is spend per vendor. Obviously you can isolate, again, like we did in the sales, sorry, excuse me. You can isolate a specific item group and then look at, you know, which vendors you're purchasing these items from. So we can see this item group 7, we are purchasing from these 2 vendors. I'd say there are 4 main vendors for this item, and several other vendors that we're purchasing these things from. Big uncaptured. So there are a lot of vendors that they were purchasing these items from last year that are no longer on the system. You can see them over here. Excuse me, I seem to be having some connectivity issues. I think it's resolved. We will record the webinar and make it available to you. So if we do have further connectivity issues, you will be able to, you know, go over this webinar again and watch it again in your own time. So there were many vendors that they were purchasing from last year that they're no longer purchasing these items from. And it doesn't look like they're getting better deals from the current vendors. It looks like they just purchased less. Again, we've got our annual trend, and then we've got our spend per vendor. So what you see here on the bottom right is also quite interesting. Similar to how we were looking at on the sales accelerator, we were looking at sales revenue versus frequency of transactions. This is the same thing on a purchasing side. So you can see who you're spending your money with. The big blue bar is the actual purchasing spend, and the gray line is the number of transactions per vendor. So you can see here, this vendor over here, very low spend, high number of transactions. So either this company is ordering in small volumes, or again, they're having issues with returns. There's lots of credit notes coming in here. So then you can really see who your high maintenance vendors and suppliers are and who your easy ones. This company here on the left, you know, we're talking 22 orders for 3 million Rand. I mean, this seems like a pretty simple client to do business with. They're obviously ordering in bulk from that vendor. If we go into our vendor concentration, what this dashboard is showing you is your share of spend versus how many transactions you've had with the vendor. So basically what you want to see here is you want to see on these graphs, this should cascade up. You want to have contracts in place with certain vendors and make sure that you are procuring from those vendors that you have contracts in place from. You don't want to see big spend coming in here in your one-time vendors, because that means either you couldn't get the product you needed from your contracted or your regular vendor, they were either out of stock or whatever the issue is, or in some instances, which would be the good news, is you managed to find a better deal, in which case, you went with a transaction there with a better deal. Ideally, if you do find a supplier who's giving you a better deal than your contracted vendor, you'd like to contract them, and you'd like to see purchases with that supplier moving up in this graph towards your repeat purchase level. What the one-time vendor concentration dashboard also shows us is it does show us deviations from procurement policy. So if we do select, let's select an item group here. Again, let's go, I think we chose item group 7 earlier. So we select this item group. We can see that they've had 31 vendors that they've transacted with 10 times or less so far this year. These don't seem to be updating again. Again, it's the transformation measure creation in Power BI is a bit tricky. So now that I've scrubbed this model, some of these graphs aren't working. That is, one of the things we've learned in our past few months with our experience that we've gone through on these projects with Power BI. We've learned that it can be a bit finicky, for lack of a better word. So it really is. It's a great solution if your back-end data structure or your requirements are not changing. You know what they are. You can build a solution in Power BI that's going to service your business, service your BI requirements. If there are changes made on the back end and you have to do some more transformation steps in Power BI, it's going to come with a longer development time than it would in maybe one of the other BI tools. So just bear that in mind when assessing the various options out there. So yeah, like I say, I mean, if you do see a large spend number appearing here in the one-time vendors, then you know that people are deviating from purchasing with your contracted vendors. And then you need to go and investigate why they deviated. Was it because they got a better deal? Or was it because they were doing a favor to a friend? That you can work out by digging into this. If we track price tracking by product, what this dashboard is showing you is it allows you to compare the cost of certain items across your vendors. So let's isolate a product group, an item group, and we can really see, on the left here, the prices, average price per vendor here. So we can see, let's see that's price tracking. Do we have we don't have a revenue over here, but bottom right, so you can see the price tracking by vendor as well. You can see who's, your most expensive vendors, who are your cheapest vendors. So ideally, you'd want to be doing business with these vendors down here for this product. This is actually, yeah, you don't want to do business with the guys who are overcharging you for products. If we look here in the table, let's order by amount. 1 second. Let the model update. So amount, you can see these vendors here are really the guys you've spent the most money with this year. And it's because they're giving you the best deals. Why you would ever do business with this guy over here for this product, I don't know. Because, I mean, we're really talking about 2,000 times the price through these other vendors. So either there was a purchase done through this guy for because there was no other option, or this vendor has a different grade of product, maybe a higher quality product, or maybe because we're looking at an item group, this is one item that sits within this item group that you purchased from this specific vendor that is very different to the other items that sit in this group. So again, it helps you by visualizing your data. You can regroup everything, and you can clean up everything on the back end to make sure that you are grouping things intelligently. Just want to remove my selection here again. All right. If we go into the buyer analysis, this is analyzing the purchases, the actual purchasing department within the company and their performance. Again, you can see here the largest purchasing account that is used by this company is blank, which means they are not capturing a buyer code when they make these purchases. Either there's a central account that people are purchasing from that doesn't have a buyer code attached to it, or these purchase invoices, these purchase orders have not been captured correctly and they have not calculated this figure over here. So again, this points to a back-end data issue, which is illuminated by visualizing that data. And then what we've got on here as well is we've got graphs showing you assigned spend versus unassigned spend. Basically what that is, assigned spend is spend on items that are linked to either a production process or a product that the company sells. So if you are buying a component that you use to manufacture a certain product, or a, let's say, you know, an oil or some kind of item that's used in the manufacturing process of a specific product, that will appear in assigned spend. Unassigned spend is either, you know, purchases that have not been captured correctly against an end product, or what more often than not, what it is it's things like your cleaning products for your office, tea, coffee, you know, all the overheads that you have in your office that are not linked to a product that you sell, that will come through here in unassigned spend. And that's what you're seeing here. So ideally, you know, you'd want to try and map those things into some kind of product group where it's called non-stock, or, you know, overheads or whatever you want to call it, and then it shouldn't appear in unassigned spend. And then if you ever do see values, if you are mapping everything correctly and you do see values coming up here in unassigned spend, then you know that it's purchase orders that have not been captured correctly, and you can go and investigate. You could obviously select that period and it'll show you some details regarding that unassigned spend. If you go over to the transaction detail that I have at the end, you can dig into the purchase orders and see, you know, where it's coming from. So the next dashboard we're looking at is the actual unassigned spend dashboard. And this is just showing you unassigned spend across, similar to how we saw margin analysis in the sales accelerator, looking at margin performance across store, customer, and product groups. This is showing you your unassigned spend by vendor, by product group, and per buyer within your company. So you can see who the big culprits are. What you really would expect to see is certain product groups featuring high in unassigned spend, because there will be product groups, like I say, that are not linked to a final product, and you would see that spend in here. There are obviously also certain vendors that you purchase your cleaning products, your overheads, your tea, coffee from. You'd purchase those from certain vendors. So you would expect to see, like you see here, unassigned spend percentage is not populating here, and that's because there's no assigned spend from these vendors. So these are definitely, you know, guys that you only purchase unassigned things from. So really then it's a case of mapping these items and products that you purchase from these vendors, mapping them into non-stock or cleaning or however you want to map them. And then you can really see real unassigned spend rather than just your overheads coming in through here. I just want to quickly just breeze through the working capital. This is a work in progress, what we're looking at. What we want to do with this dashboard is look at current debt for the company. So customers who owe you money, what their balances are, the aging of those balances, who you owe money to on the creditor's side, again, the aging, what the balances are per creditor, and then what your stock on hand, stock on order, cash balance looks like. And what we can do there is we can then calculate working capital amount for the company. We can calculate cash flow. If we've got the aging and we've got the payment rules per creditor and the payment rules for each customer, then we can even start forecasting what the cash flow and working capital will be in the future. So this is a very nice model that we're currently working on, which is really going to be great for the finance team to manage when they spend, if they should be buying with certain vendors, if the vendors are going to even allow them to buy from them because they have outstanding overdue balances, all of those kind of things. They can manage payment schedules, they can manage purchasing, and you really can optimize the business's cash flow by looking at your inventory, your debtors, and your creditors all together on one sheet. We do go into a bit of detail, like I say, work in progress. What I also is great about this is if you do keep information or data regarding the volumes of your stock on hand, then we can also optimize things like, you know, which truck to use for certain deliveries, your warehouse space required, all of those things based on the fluctuations in stock on hand volume per location. And you really can, it allows you to then look at things like, if you are purchasing 100,000 cubic meters of stock every second month, and therefore you need a warehouse that's 100,000 cubic meters that can hold that, maybe what you would then want to do is say, okay, well, let's downsize our warehouse and rather order 50,000 cubic meters of product every month rather than 100,000 every second month. And then you get a cost saving on the warehouse side. So please get in touch with me if you're interested in the working capital inventory side of it. I'd be very happy to demo this to you in a week or so's time when we have this fully up and running and we can show you some real value out of this. Otherwise, if you have any questions, guys, we are going to keep the Q&A section open for half an hour to 45 minutes after this webinar has ended. So if you have any questions, please post them there. If you want to set up time with us, again, my name's Peter Gardner. You can contact me at p.gardner@decisioninc.co.za. Otherwise, you can just contact our sales team, and they will put you in touch with the relevant parties on our side, the right divisions, the right people to speak to.